Episode 6 of Kleo Season 2 starts its finale with Uwe showing up to see Nikolai in his office. He goes on to continue their conversation from before on the phone, telling him that he wants to take over Margot's position. Specifically, he wants to be the one to kill Kleo. He's rejected, naturally, given Ramona is going to take over for that role. Uwe is not exactly happy. Meanwhile, Kleo puts on her seahorse necklace, a remnant from the past and a way to remind herself of the sacrifice her mother made for her. She shows up with Sven right at her grandmother's place. Her name is Akalina, and although she seems all happy and jovial, they definitely shouldn't let their guard down here, given we saw her last episode telling Sven to make sure Kleo doesn't show up. Being in this place though jogs Kleo's memory as she realises she used to be here years ago as a child. She does keep her guard up thankfully, realising that this could be a trick. Akalina continues on, claiming that it was actually Kleo's mother that destroyed everything and not Nikolai. Kleo, thankfully, doesn't fall for it. Akalina shows off a photo album with pictures of her and Nikolai together, but Kleo keeps her poker face going. Kleo retorts back, admitting that she won't let Nikolai do what he intends to do for the Soviet Republic. Akalina is surprised by how much Nikolai and Kleo have in common, including their determination and willingness to do what they must. Kleo eventually parts ways with her grandmother, and as a tear falls from her cheek, she concedes and bids Kleo goodbye. The last line of defense is unsuccessful and she rings Nikolai after, telling him that she's failed. She's a stubborn child, Akalina says in defeat. Kleo and Sven show up to see the former's old friend in Moscow and Natasha. Whilst there, Kleo receives a call. It happens to be Nikolai. He tries to speak his piece with her, pointing out that he's her father and he actually wanted to call her Hope back in the day. This is an interesting little reveal, especially because Kleo's using her own hope for the future now as motivation in her endeavours, rallying against Nikolai, plunging the world into his version of the Soviet Republic of Germany. The pair eventually draw their battle lines in the sand, parting ways on bad terms and with the threat of a big fight on the horizon. Either way, one of them will die by the time this is all said and done. Sven approaches Kleo and points out that she has changed since he first met her. He can see the goodness in her now, and we've seen across this season in particular that she's starting to get some of her humanity back, rather than being the stone cold assassin we saw in season 1. Her moments on the rooftop with Sven, not to mention the vulnerability when she saw Sven and Kimberly on the dance floor, are two such examples, and it also harks back to her putting the seahorse necklace around her neck, which is also a nice way of showing that she's starting to soften a little bit. Anyway, in the morning they're back on it again, with Kleo and Sven smoking out the KGB building. Using chemical warfare, brought on through a package sent into the building, Kleo poses as one of the firemen, complete with a gas mask, and works her way up to Nikolai's office. He's nowhere to be seen given he's apparently at the ballet, but Kleo does search for his desk, finding documents and a photo frame of her family all together. Unfortunately, she lets her guard down and Anya attacks from behind. As she begins monologuing about family and strength, Uwe shows and kills Romana. Kleo manages to get free and the pair play a game of cat and mouse through the factory. The pair end up at a stalemate up on the rooftop, eventually ending with Kleo shooting Uwe dead. Meanwhile, Sven is brought before Nikolai, who happens to still be lurking about. He doesn't cower in the face of the gun to his face and bigs up Kleo, pointing out how amazing she is and how Kleo is going to kill him. Sven stares death in the face and decides to walk away. He's not sure as he leaves the car, and the look on the face shows he's just as surprised as we are. When he returns to see Natasha, Kleo also heads back, but she's been shot by Uwe. Sven helps patch her up. Kleo realises where the pact may actually be. Given we've seen a lot of space imagery and visuals this season, Kleo realises that the family photo on Nikolai's desk is a clue unto itself. The tower in the background is the monument to the conquerors of space, so that's where they're going. With disguises to boot, Sven and Kleo both dress as Soviet officers and break into the tower. In the middle of this we have a little side note with Philo reuniting with Sienna, but there's not a whole lot to write home about here, so we won't touch on it very much. Back with Kleo and Sven though, they break in and find the safe, eventually leaving with the documents. However, they're stopped by Rose, who happens to be outside. She's dispatched the guards at the tower and holds them up at gunpoint. She wants the documents for herself. In exchange for the pact, she holds a letter which will change her life forever. Kleo refuses to indulge, but just before she shoots Kleo, Nikolai arrives and shoots her in the chest. In fact, a standoff ensues at the bridge as Kleo holds him up at gunpoint too. Nikolai is confident that Kleo won't shoot, but she doesn't have to. She decides to burn the pact in front of him, and as it goes up in flames, Nikolai raises his gun and fires. Sven jumps in the way and takes a bullet for her, while Nikolai scrambles for the documents. This is enough for Kleo, to shoot her father dead. Sven, as we soon find out, is still alive. He was shot right through the emblem he was given earlier on. An amusing scene ensues as Kleo points out she was actually wearing a bulletproof vest all this time. This heroic, selfless act from Sven though is enough for Kleo to open up and kiss him. So what of the pact? Well, the ones Kleo had in her hand were actually just a decoy and not the real documents. The real ones were stashed up her trouser leg. With the documents revealed, Kleo smiles and walks with Sven hand in hand as they leave together. In an intriguing little twist though, it turns out Kleo has a twin brother up in space. He hears the news that Nikolai is dead and informs whoever is on the other line that he's coming back now. As the episode closes out, it's revealed that Juve is actually still alive. He lifts up into a seated position and pets the cat alongside him as the season comes to an end. The season 2 ending of Kleo reveals some pretty startling revelations, including that the person inside the photo on Nikolai's desk may not actually be Kleo after all. Given what we found out this season, it wouldn't surprise me if it turns out to be her twin brother Harold instead. The whole drama with the past and the person dressed as a cosmonaut may be another clue to this, and not Kleo playing dress up as we initially thought, while the drama involving Nikolai on the phone, discussing the space program, could well be linked to Harold as well. With Kleo and Sven finally on the same page again, it looks like if Netflix renew this one for a third season, at least at the time of writing they haven't, we'll be seeing the pair potentially going up against Harold and squaring off in the future. Personally, it would have been nice to see a bit more of the conflict between Kleo and Nikolai at the end there, especially because it's been teased all the way through this season and it pretty much ends up with a 5-minute standoff on the bridge. While there's nothing wrong with that, given we get the nice moments with Sven sacrificing himself for Kleo and Kleo finally understanding that he's on her side, it still would have been nice to have a little bit more of an antagonistic threat, especially because there's more for Juve to do than Nikolai in this episode. Still, it's nice to see Kleo coming full circle and embracing her childish innocence. However, it could well be that with her twin brother returning, she's going to have to snap out of that and return back to her murderous ways. Ultimately, the show has been pretty decent and the second season is just as endearing as the first. The same visual design that marked the first one as so unique is plain to see here too, and we mentioned in the first episode recap that the distinct colours of red and blue are used throughout this season and it's pretty effective to give this a unique design. Overall, the finale delivers a satisfying and decent conclusion, even with that little cliffhanger ending teasing more to come if Netflix renew this one for a third season. Thanks for watching and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.